Hello there, thrill seekers. I would like to talk to you about a passage from Dogen's book Eihei Koruku, Dogen's extensive record, in which he talks about crying. We're going to do that right after 15 seconds of me playing the rhythm guitar from While My Guitar Gently Weeps. All right, how you doing, thrill seekers? I came across this passage from Dogen's book, Eihei Koroku, aka Dogen's extensive record, which people used to call Dogen's expensive record. Let's see, this paperback version costs $26.95, but the original hardback was like $65 or something. And actually, there's more in the paperback. This is why I have the paperback, and I use the hardback version as a thing to prop up my DVD player, because it's something the wires don't. The wires run into the wall if I don't have it on top of something. So anyway, this one has stuff that the hardback doesn't have in it, so I don't really need the hardback for anything anymore, so I use it. Anyway, sorry, Dogen, for using your book that way. But this passage, I don't remember how I came across this. I think I was looking for something completely other and just happened upon it randomly. Let me tell you a little bit about Dogen's extensive record, though. This is Dogen's other major book, other than Shobo Genzo. As you can see, it's pretty thick. Let's see, this English version, not including all the notes and things in the back, which are quite extensive. Let's see, 643 pages, maybe, 600 some pages. Anyway, a lot of pages in this book. Not as big as Shobo Genzo, though, which is 4 volumes, each of which are almost as big as this one. But this is the one major work of Dogen's that I have to admit I'm not that familiar with. I think I've read most of it. I don't believe I've ever read the whole thing cover to cover. It is a collection of sermons that Dogen gave, mostly, and then there's some other stuff. There's some poetry and some other. There's some longer pieces that appear to be more like written pieces that are similar to Shobo Genzo. Just a couple of those, but it tends to be much more difficult, like just weird and. Yeah, okay, let me just read you a random passage that I happen to have bookmarked here. Here's one of it, the passages from this. Having turned the ancient sutras in each inhale and exhale, now manifesting the ancient Buddhas in each bowel movement, in every place apparent, with every item precious, to express such a principle, how would you speak? After a pause, Dogen said, "The high skies of spring now darken, the green colors of the fields are clear. Amid the 10 million peach blossoms, where can we find the spirit clouds?" Okay, yeah. As difficult as the stuff in Shobo Genzo is, I find the stuff in Eihei Koroku to be even more difficult. Because I feel like this is my sort of go-to answer anytime anybody asks me about Eihei Koroku. I feel like for most of these things you had to be there. I feel like they probably made more sense in the context of the time when Dogen actually gave these speeches, and maybe the people who were sitting there listening to him understood from context what he was talking about. But it doesn't really come across all that well, especially when you add the problem of translating it into English to the mix. It just gets really hard to understand some of it. Whereas Shobo Genzo, the pieces are much longer, and yes, they are difficult, but he says a lot more. So you have more opportunity to kind of figure out where he's going. This is why I find Shobo Genzo to be much easier, even though the pieces in here are much shorter. But this piece that I found the other day relates to a video I did recently called, I think it was called something like Cultivating Non-Attachment to Family and Friends. And that video, which I did just, 2 weeks ago? Something like that. 3 weeks ago? I don't remember. But it was about there's a question I get, which should be one of my FAQs. I don't think it's in my... I do have an FAQ section, by the way, in case you want to know, in my blog. It's hardcorezen.info/FAQ. And there I answer a bunch of questions that I get all the time, and some folks might find that interesting because a lot of the questions I get over and over. So this question that I mentioned in that previous video was another one of my frequently asked questions, and it is from people who've heard of this idea of detachment or non-attachment. And they think it means they have to be aloof from their spouses, their family, their friends, and they have to cultivate this. I always think of Kane from Kung Fu, although nobody remembers that show anymore. It was a show from the 70s. I don't even remember it from its original run. That's how old it is. But I did see it in reruns in the 80s and 90s. And it's a show about, it stars, who is it, David Carradine? As a supposedly half Chinese, half Caucasian monk from the Shaolin monastery where Bodhidharma famously started the Zen thing rolling, and where they also developed most of the martial arts. And he somehow ends up in the Old West and fights cowboys and beats them up and stuff like that. And he plays this character who's just kind of what people stereotypically think a Buddhist monk or a Zen monk should be. He's very aloof. He doesn't really have any attachments to anybody in the world. He doesn't seem to have any friends or any family or anything else. He's just wandering by himself through the great southwest deserts of the United States of America, sometimes righting wrongs for people in trouble. I mean, that's the basic premise of the show. But often beating the crap out of people and espousing Zen wisdom along the way. So people think that the Zen monk should have no attachments means that I should be aloof from my family, my friends, from everybody in my life, and I should just cultivate this air of just being like, I'm just on my own and I don't need nobody else. Which is not what non-attachment means. Non-attachment actually is, I explained it much better in that previous video and in another video which I referenced in that video called Attachment is Fuel. But it's not that at all. It's more of not being stuck on preserving everything to be exactly the way it is. It's not being stuck on views of how things should be and how I should be and how the world should be, and kind of stuck in your own personal bubble of what I think the world ought to be like as opposed to what it's actually like. That's what non-attachment means. In brief, go watch the other videos if you want to see me talk about it some more. Maybe you already have. But if I had known about this passage, I don't know if I ever read it before I came across it recently at random, I would have included it as evidence that the idea of being aloof from everybody in your life is not what non-attachment means. Sorry, I'm trying to find it. I should have bookmarked the page. Okay, it occurs on, let's see, page 143 if you're looking at the paperback, and it is 111. These are Dharma Hall discourses. I guess it's Dharma Hall discourse number 111. Dogen did not give titles to these, but the translators, who are Taigen Dan Layton and Shohaku Okumura, they gave titles to them. And the title they gave to this one is The Sangha Ocean Dries Up. And it is 111, as I said, Dharma Hall discourse on behalf of the deceased head monk Sokai. And it says here on the footnote that Sokai had been Shuso, or head monk, of a practice period sometime after Dogen's senior disciple Koun Eijo in 1236. Sokai's name means Sangha Ocean. According to the Sanso Gyoki, record of the first three ancestors, which are Dogen, Eijo, and Gikai. These are the first three heads of the Soto. These are Dogen and his two first Dharma heirs, let's put it that way. They're not really, I was going to say heads of the Soto Shu, but the Soto Shu kind of bugs me. They present themselves, it's an organization in Japan that sort of presents itself as being the Dharma descendants, the direct Dharma descendants of Dogen, and in a sense they are, but they're more like the Vatican. It's like the Vatican claiming, and I think the Vatican does claim, that they are the descendants of the first apostles and stuff like that, but it's pretty different. Anyway, Sorry for the rant there. Anyway, it says one of the oldest biographies of Dogen. That's what we are referring to. Sokai had previously received Dharma transmission from Dogen after Eijo. The Sanso Go-gyoki says that Sokai was one of 3 Dharma successors of Dogen along with Eijo and Senne, the compiler of the first volume of Eihei Koroku. But some modern scholars question whether Senne received transmission. Okay, just some nerdy stuff for you. This is the meat of the thing, though. This is what I wanted to get to. He says Dogen recited Sokai's death verse. And Sokai's death verse, his death poem was, "In 27 years, my ancient debt is not repaid. Leaping over the empty sky, I shoot myself into hell like an arrow." Wow, that's pretty harsh. So Sokai died when he was just 27 years old. We don't know why. It was the 1200s in Japan, so, there was a lot of things that killed people those days that don't kill people these days, so he must have, something must have happened. We don't know what it was. But he was a young guy. And especially, I'm kind of surprised when I reread this, I didn't realize that he had gotten Dharma transmission at such a young age. That's kind of rare, so he must have been pretty brilliant. So, after reciting this, the teacher Dogen said, this is, the Eihei Koroku is all written in third person. As it says here, it was compiled by Senne. I don't know if Senne wrote these things down, one of Dogen's students, or if Dogen himself often referred to himself in third person, but here he goes. He says, after reciting the verse, "Last night, Sokai," which means Sangha Ocean, dried up. So Dogen can't resist making a pun even when somebody has died. I'm assuming that in ancient Japanese this didn't sound like a joke, but it is a kind of a pun. He says, "Last night Sokai," his name means Dharma Ocean, "dried up. How profusely the cloud and water monks have been crying. Although I see you, Sokai, down to the ocean bottom, tears fill my breast like an overflowing lake. Yesterday I held up and shook the whisk for your spirit." So it's a kind of a whisk that Dharma teachers would hold when they spoke. "With this one word upon your departure, I don't wait for you to revive." There is also a second discourse, this is number 112, in which Dogen also talks about the deceased head monk Sokai, and they've given it the title, this is the translators, have given it the title, "A Transformation in the Monastery." This is 112, a second Dharma Hall discourse on behalf of the deceased head monk Sokai. "Here is a saying. Zhaozhou said," I think Zhaozhou is the same as Joshu, he's a famous Zen monk, and the names change because of the Japanese pronouncing the Chinese characters differently. So Joshu said, "Upon first seeing this old monk, thereafter you are not a different person." Then the teacher Dogen said, "Upon seeing this old monk," he's referring to himself, Dogen, "Sokai did not have the same face. While he was alive, he never left the monastery. In the chill winds, while the fruits were falling, he transformed his thinking. A splash of water is his body, the clouds are his mind." So there you go. There are Dogen's 2 talks about this deceased monk, Sokai, who was a young man. And you can see that he talks about everybody in the monastery is crying over his loss, and Dogen himself is saying he cried over the loss of Sokai. So from reading this, we get the idea that Dogen and his monks, though they were supposedly practicing Buddhist non-attachment, they certainly had the same kinds of feelings for this man who they had lived with and practiced with as anybody else would for somebody they lived and practiced with and cared about. And so this idea of being aloof and being, free from all attachments to your family and your friends and your spouses and all this that people ask me about, this is definitely definitely not what Buddhist non-attachment is all about. And I wish I'd known about that passage when I did the previous video, because I just would have included it as part of that video instead of making a whole other video about it, because it's a little bit, it doesn't really make for a good, just an entire video. I can't do 20 minutes on that subject alone. But I thought it was really interesting, and I wanted to share it with you folks. I am currently working on a book called The Zen of Godzilla, which probably will not be the title of the book, in which I'm trying to relate Zen to Godzilla. And I was using that passage in the chapter I did about Buddhist non-attachment in relation to Godzilla. And the way I related Godzilla to Buddhist non-attachment was kind of related to a video I did, it must have been a year or two ago. I don't even remember how long ago. It was a while ago when I'd made a trip to Japan. I came back and I had a whole bunch of Godzilla toys and things that I'd bought in Japan. And I did this little video where I had my nephew play Buddha, and Buddha is telling me not to be attached to my material objects, my Godzilla toys and things. And then, spoiler alert, at the end of the video, the Buddha steals my Godzilla toys for himself. So it just, anyway, I related that. I didn't go into the whole video thing, but I related that idea of collecting stuff and non-attachment, and I kind of made something out of that. So that's what you can look forward to in that book. All right, that's it. That's all I got for today. I hope that's enough. As I said, there's some stuff going on, and I'm undergoing some medical treatments, and I'm not sure how many videos I'm going to be able to make, in the future. I'm going to try to keep up at least one a week. We shall see. From people who have undergone the same treatment that I'm going to be going through, I hear it's really not that bad, and so I expect I'll be able to make the videos, but if you don't see me here, maybe I'm not feeling up to it. So, I do appreciate your donations, especially at this time. And if you want to donate to me, you can go to the URL that you're about to see on the screen below, or that you're about to hear if you are listening to the audio version of this, and that is hardcorezen.info/donate. That is hardcorezen.info/donate. That's where you'll find links to my PayPal and Patreon accounts. Those are my main and really my only ways of making a living, especially right now, because I had to cancel my tour of Europe, which was supposed to happen next month. So I'm not going to be making that income, so your donations are especially important to me, and I really appreciate it. But as always, you don't got to donate to me if you don't want to. All right, we will see you next time. Have a good time all the time. Bye. All right, Ziggy, how you doing? It is hot today, and Ziggy, these are the dog days of summer for Ziggy, and Ziggy is just like one of those summer dogs right now. He doesn't want to do much of anything. But Ziggy, I'll let you nap in the heat. It's not too hot in here because we got the air conditioning going, but it's hot outside. All right, we'll talk to you later, Ziggy. Bye.